back with another Bible in a Minute, Genesis 24. So this is the chapter where Abraham makes his servant Eliezer swear that he's going to find a wife for Abraham's son, Isaac. And so he sends him off on this quest to find a wife. But I mean, Eliezer's like, man, I don't know how this is going to happen. And so he begins to pray, and he asks God to guide him and give him favor. Basically, God, you know who Isaac needs to marry, so I need you to direct me in that direction. Verse 15 says, before he had finished praying. And I love that inclusion. I mean, God knows what we need before we even finish our prayer. And before Eliezer had finished praying, all of a sudden, Rebekah shows up. Verse 21, she not only gave him water, but she also watered his camels. If you do the math, that's about 140 gallons of water for him and his camels. That is no small task. That is an incredibly generous use of her time. And it proved that God had heard and answered Eliezer's request. So at the beginning, Eliezer refers to God as the God of my master, Abraham. But then he moves it to a more personal response. He says, as for me, the Lord has led me. And so through this experience, Eliezer gets a firsthand encounter with the living God, and God became real for him. In verse 50, Laban and Bethuel, they respond probably the only way they can. I mean, how can you dispute this miraculous turn of events? How he prayed a very specific prayer, God answered him very specifically, because that's what Rebekah did is not normal. That is a level of generosity that was just very unusual. But God had answered the prayer, and so they're like, I mean, what can we say? Like, how could we dispute this? Clearly, God is in this. Verse 58. So they ask, Laban asks Rebekah, will you go with this man? And this is important. The Bible is establishing that consent is important. Without consent, nothing happens. She was not a slave. She was not being sold off as property. She had to give her consent. I will go with this man for the intention of marrying his master's son, Isaac. And I think that's really cool. So read chapter 24 and let me know what you think.